Like a computer-generated Mandelbrot set. Our lives can be seen as nothing more than a game within a game. Or as Shakespeare once put it, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. To enliven the analogy a little, let's get the boring stuff out of the way first. Let's define a game. The definition could be that you need a set of rules, you need a fixed goal, you need an element of chance, and you need some competition. Then you've got the players, and the players could be seen as, creators of the rules, players following the rules, a referee if that's not the players themselves, and possibly cheaters as well, or those that like to bend the rules. Then there's the criteria of the game. You might define that as having a common experience, having a quality at least to start with, and therefore you have an equal chance to win at the beginning. Freedom to play the game by the rules or leave the game. Some activity within the game so that people are doing things. And then the fact that you have to dive into the world of the game so you ignore other things to immerse yourself in it. Okay, now we have the boring stuff dealt with. Let's get to the crux of the belief I'm trying to portray here. I would like to say to you that you are indeed playing your own part or acting as a player in a game. You may not believe you're acting, but then a good performance never seems that way. The game of society is a complex beast and has subtle differences to the commonalities with other games. Take, for instance, the rules. Well, we all know they are in place and are being changed on a regular basis by our rulers to keep people constrained within the game, provide a semblance of being able to progress, and perhaps most important for them, eliminate chance from their own lives amongst the rabble. But are the rules being changed by a legitimate source, like a supreme being or a game creator, or are they really just cheaters, also players within a bigger game, giving themselves advantage and privilege above and beyond all other players? Are they just pretenders at being those who are legitimate to rule, or ruling creators? It's certainly a game within a game, an artificial construct within the game of life, which I would argue is the real world outside the game. Or maybe that's another game. Regardless, this one has subverted the one you were meant to be playing. So let's take the freedom to play criterion. Maybe we had choice generations ago to play or not while the rules were being fine-tuned and opposition was being removed. How that condemned subsequent generations to have to play on, I don't know. But if others are holding you to the rules, a game is certainly afoot. Let's take a moment to reflect on our carefree days as a youngster. Imagine an older sibling, or perhaps an enemy at school, or maybe just someone who liked lying. You could be playing a board game, or perhaps playing outside with sticks and imagination, and someone claims a change to the rules to their advantage. They were never shot with your stick, or someone takes more money than they should after passing go, or a controller gets knocked out of your hands just at a crucial moment in a game. So you got angry, or maybe you put up with it for a while because the game was more enjoyable than the boredom. But sooner or later, the cheating in one form or another weighed heavily on the wrong side of the scales, and you spat the dummy, so to speak, and stormed off home. You therefore took yourself out of the game, because it was plain that it was rigged. This kind of exchange is easy to do when it's one-on-one, or if a couple of mates gang up on the other, but neither strategy has as much impact when the game is played by a group, especially when things happen on a larger scale. The cheater has to be a lot more careful now. They can't just say they weren't tagged when 10 people are watching them. It was easy to do when they could bully the only person who'd play with them. Getting annoyed by cheating is less likely to be seen, at least in a larger group. If everyone knows the rules, there will be less cheats than those playing the game correctly, as all have agreed to play by the rules. And the impact that would see you leaving the game through getting annoyed is much less. As there are more people, you may not see the sleight of hand, and therefore a loss is not game destroying. You'd find it very difficult to leave this particular game now though. The cheaters have had to maneuver themselves into positions of power. Artificial rulers or referees made up of government, mafia, judges, etc. They can just say they changed the rules and demand you bend to them. And meanwhile, they will take a cut for little to no work. After all, it's easier for a few to make an individual bend and acquiesce with some thugs at an individual's door than to try and face down a crowd in the street. So imagine, if you haven't already, that what we are being told by Shakespeare, the Matrix crisis actor scenarios, or the holographic universe is all true. What if we are born into a game, but the best positions have been taken or created by those that found or stole the best information early on and moved their families and supporters into positions that allow them to manipulate their experience of the game to be the best at the expense of all others who would be born into their manipulated version of it henceforth? Subsequent generations are now not born to some sort of Amish technology hybrid with ethics for helping fellow humans, but are born to work at the bottom of a board of snakes and ladders, continually sliding down the snakes, while those above have cleared their top part of the board of the major traps the game could make them succumb to due to power and influence, and they are free to generate further barriers to those below to prevent them from reaching their heights. What if the gypsies, Romanies, Aborigines, native tribes seemed to have it worse, but in actual fact could have the best way of life if they kept from conforming when compared to ours? It must be a temptation indeed to see the gadgets and feel one's life would be better with them, but given the chance right now, would you live with the hardship of nature only stayed by the hand of like-minded community members and have but a few modern gadgets? Or would you stay with all the modern conveniences, knowing you are a slave to a system that has no choice but to get more oppressive over time? Future generations will have less clarity if you choose modern society. Like a photocopied page of a photocopied page, degraded because of it being multiple generations from the original. Each new generation is now seeing the only choice as being the game board of gadgets in front of them, and nothing worthwhile to do outside of it. The only temporary breach of this spell is when the power goes out. I find myself having to think of candles for light, and bring out a portable gas-powered stove for heating water or food, while my child will use the remaining battery in his device and then look around bewildered to offer the two-word phrase that surely angers a generation of childhood hearts who once played in imaginary dugout forts or read books. He states as though someone should actually care for his own personal dilemma, "I'm bored." I realise too late now that I've failed as a parent from keeping him away from these all-pervading devices the schools now seem to expect as standard, and await the similarly banal questions to follow while the power continues to elude us. Classics such as, "What's for dinner? I can't see where I'm going." And who could forget, "Hey Dad, the TV's not working." I really have no right to smile, as my own experiences gained through time have taught me how to react, and I still catch myself reaching for a light switch at times like these. It's still good for a laugh, though.